The life of Abraham Pressburger. The family story begins with Akiva Pressburger, who was born 1810 in Galanta. He was the great-grandfather of Abraham. Akiva married Zelda and had two sons, Israel and Moshe Zvi. Moshe had 7 children, and Abraham's father, Alexander, was the third son, who was born in 1894. Alexander married Frida, who came from Bratislava, and together they had 3 children: Annie, Lucy, and Heinz Abraham, who was born 1921 in Bratislava. Abraham's mother came from Bratislava, from a rich Orthodox family. His parents met after the First World War, when Alexander came to Bratislava and started to work there. Frida and Alexander were working for the same company there, and short while after they decided to get married. They were a part of the Jewish community in Bratislava. The community was already mentioned in documents from the 13th century. Back then, it numbered several hundred Jews. It already had a synagogue, a mikveh, a cemetery, and other public institutions. By 18th century, they already had 2 synagogues, a hospital, a kosher butcher shop, a cheder, and a Talmud Torah school. At that time, Bratislava became an important center for Jewish learning. But in 1872, there had become a thaw inside the community between the Orthodox and the rising Neolog community, who grew and built his own public buildings and a synagogue. Abraham's father often attended the Neolog synagogue, where he liked to listen to the chief rabbi's sermons on Saturdays. Abraham describes his life until he was 15 as a good period, even though there was already anti-Semitism. He went to a Jewish elementary school until 1934, when he was forced to go to a Slovak school. In 1939, he was thrown out of school. His family had to move to a small house, to an area where many Germans lived. When he was about 16 years old, he became a member of the Communist Youth in the Hashomer HaTzair, a socialistic and Zionistic organization. Abraham's father was working in the labor camp Zeret, from which he returned every week. Later on, in 1942, the whole family, including Abraham, moved there, since Alexander was chosen to take the responsibility for their supply of food. Until the end of the war, 4,500 Jews were deported to Poland, mostly to Auschwitz. In the camp, Abraham didn't live with his parents, but in a dormitory, where other members of the Hashomer HaTzair lived. Together they arranged meetings, in which they discussed about preparing bunkers in case the transportations to Poland begin again, or to plan their escape, and more. In 1943, Abraham's father became a chairman of the Jewish Council. Thanks to this position, Abraham was allowed to leave the camp due to his illness for 2 months. Those 2 months he spent in the mountains, the high Tatars. During his time there, he found a source of weapons, which he then brought back to the camp. In 1944, the Slovak uprising began, and the gates of the camp opened. Abraham's family left to a farm. Abraham wasn't there when it happened, and together with a friend they joined the local army. Unfortunately, the commander in charge decided not to take part in the resistance and handed both of them to the Germans. They both decided to run away to Loptovsky Mikolas, an area occupied by partisans, where friends of them lived as well. There the three friends joined the partisans and were a part of several missions, such as attacking the airport and the German army camp. In 1945, Abraham was impressive in a hospital. The Soviet army has advanced through Slovakia, but Bratislava wasn't liberated yet, so he had to wait until he could return. In April 1945, Bratislava was liberated, and Abraham returned there. In Bratislava he finally found his family, but the city has changed completely. In the beginning, Abraham thought about going to the university in Prešov, but the leadership of Hashomer Hatzair convinced him to help and prepare other children who lost their parents in war for a journey to Palestine. After completing this task, he was sent by Hashomer Hatzair to a station in France. With him came his future wife, Eva Ginsova. In 1948, Israel's state was founded. The Czechoslovakian state supported it. In 1949, Abraham and Eva immigrated to Israel. There they lived in the Shomrat kibbutz for 3 months. They also had a wedding there. Together they had a son called Yoram and a daughter called Tamar. Tamar has 2 children, while Yoram has 1. Unlike her father, Tamar is very religious. Both Yoram and Tamar served for the army. They also took part in the Yom Kippur War and the Lebanese War. Abraham took his family to see Bratislava in Slovakia. It was an interesting and moving visit, especially an encounter with remnants of Jewish life there, and outings in that beautiful countryside, and a visit to the region of my partisanship. Bratislava is very different from my Bratislava.